At 7 a.m. and it's now time for the Morning Watch.
Listeners to Love 101 FM are advised that the views and opinions expressed in this program are not necessarily those of Love 101 FM.
Hello and welcome to the Morning Watch on Love 101 FM. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. A special welcome to our listeners on love101.org. And if you are overseas and on the move, U.S. listeners can access us at 712-832-8001. And if you are in the UK, 0330-332-6541, or join us via the Love 101 FM app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. You can also join us on Love 101 FM Facebook and YouTube Live. In the first watch today, values and attitudes. Should popular artists be role models for our children? And in second watch, 4,400 children waiting to be adopted or fostered. For our social media question, we ask, what are your thoughts on popular artists being role models for our children? Share your responses on our Love 101 Facebook page and YouTube channel, and also on WhatsApp, 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll share your responses later on in the program, but first, as I quote.
All right, today's I quote says, start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. And this one is from Arthur Ashe.
Hey, sounds like a motivational kind of I quote.
Definitely.
Yes. Don't sit around and just wait forever.
All right, start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can.
Exactly. Good morning, Jakal.
Good morning.
The first watch. We'll be back after this break.
You gave the wind a mighty voice to spread your love throughout this land.
And February 14, Love 101 will be 32 years old. Oh, wow. And on Sunday, February 9, we'll be having our 32nd anniversary church service. And we want you to be there, if you can. The service will be held at 9 a.m. at the New Testament Church of God, 65 Waltham Park Road, with host pastor Bishop Dr. Stevenson Samuels, who also serves as the chairman of the National Religious Media Commission. It's Love 101 FM 32nd anniversary. This year, we're sharing hope and touching hearts. 1 Corinthians 16:14. Let all you do be done in love. Love 101, 32 years, going strong.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. We are in the first watch, and our topic is, should popular artists be role models for our children? Should they be role models for our children? And a bit of context here. There is a recent publication in the Freedom Come Rain newspaper, and in that publication, there's a headline that reads, Spice, No School Tour. And actually, what I should have said is it's a letter to the editor of the paper. My humble apologies. And it is penned by Reverend Dr. Stevenson Samuels, who also happens to be the chairman of the National Religious Media Commission, owners and operators of Love 101 FM. And Reverend Dr. Samuels makes reference to quite a number of things in this letter to the editor. It has a lot to do with the whole matter of a recent school tour that was planned and that was being done. And apparently discontinued. And he makes a couple of points. Here are some reasons he has difficulty with the tour being held in schools. Number one, spice is a symbol of, well, a particular kind of behavior. And number two, some of the songs are considered to be not fit for airplay. And in there is a comment about the music video, hell no. And it's glorifying what appears to be the opposite of what it is promoting, etc., etc. Very interesting letter to the editor of that newspaper publication. But we're not going to be focusing so much on, or even only on, that particular artist referenced there, but looking generally as well at the whole matter of popular artists. You know, sometimes popular artists themselves will say, I don't want you to make me a role model. I'm really here to perform. But to what extent can you separate the performance from the person? You know, is that even realistic? And the reality is oftentimes you emulate, look up to persons who you have in a particular regard in your own personal life. And children are very impressionable, whether they are teenagers or below their teenage years. So their minds are still being shaped and still being formed. So we have as guests this morning to have a discussion around this, Angela Slack, author and publisher of Select Arrow Limited, teacher and vocal trainer. We also have Byron Buckley, communication strategist and second vice president of ACCM, Association of Christian Communicators and Media. Byron Buckley, Angela Slack, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Andre. No, there's so much that one could go into on a topic like this. There's so many parts to it, arguably. But should popular artists even be role models for our children in the first place? And I'll even include gospel. Sometimes we look at gospel and we think, well, gospel artists are gospel artists. They are not necessarily, they are not Jesus Christ either. So should popular artists even be role models for our children in the first place? Let us start with you, Angela Slack. Your thoughts?
Morning again, and thanks for having me. Well, I would say if you are in public life at all, as long as you're in public life, it comes with the responsibility, because by virtue of your popularity, by virtue of the influence that you have over large sections of the society, and especially if you are earning an income from that public activity, which indirectly means that the public's goodwill and pocket is funding your lifestyle, then you have a social contract with society. And that needs to be communicated very clearly. And this is why net citizens, followers, fans become irate, angry, or dissatisfied, or express their dissatisfaction when they feel that that social contract has been breached. I think in recent times, public figures are not briefed on this understanding. People rise to notoriety and popularity sort of in a meteoric way these days. It's not like in the past where people were groomed and these things were explained to them. So, you have the new with the accessibility to public life through social media, it means that that contract is there, but the process has sort of skipped certain stages, and people are left sort of like overnight sensations, and they're left without the platform of grooming and the background of understanding that you have now a responsibility. And I don't blame the so-called stars or celebrities for this. I think that the other gatekeepers of society have a responsibility. The managers who seem to make a lot of money from managing their careers, their publicists are certainly in error. But know that we have this gap that needs to be filled. We have a lot of backfilling to do, I would say, to make sure that people understand that you are in the public eye. And as long as the discussion this morning is children, as long as children see you, they look up to you. And you said earlier, Stokely, that they are impressionable and they assume that what is presented to them is a pattern or a model to follow. And if you are not aware of that, it means that you act irresponsibly in the public eye. And if you are aware of it, then the assumption is that you should certainly behave responsibly in the public eye. And that's what I think.
Well, okay, that's quite a bit there. Baron Buckley, as a communication strategist, any thoughts? And just generally speaking, sir.
Yes. You hear me?
Yes, sir, loud and clear.
I want to start out by responding directly to the question: why not? Why shouldn't popular artists be role models? Remember now that the whole matter of role modeling is a process of self-selection. People don't go up and say, "Hey, I'm a role model." It is that adults, children look at you and there's something about your behavior, your attitude that they are deciding that they model their behavior, their action from you. So for me, the thing is essentially a values-based issue. Let me explain. I grew up 3 children. They're all adults now. I can't be with them, and by the way, they're still all across the world. My wife couldn't be with them wherever they are 24/7. Saying, do that, do that, we couldn't do that. So what we did was to instill in them intentionally the values that we believe can guard and protect them when they're on their own and in their own time. And so I believe it's a values issue. And we have to go back there. If the family, guardians will spend time instilling the values in their children, then any little way that doctrine would say, it goes down. So I don't worry about those things. I'm not saying there should be the school shouldn't be guarded and so on. They should be. We can come to that. But the first thing is that role modeling is a self-selection process. And so therefore, if you want to influence your children as to who they look at as role model, you have to intentionally start pouring into them the values that they automatically say, that's not my guy. That's not my girl. That is my first response.
Now, when you say self-selection process, if you can explain that.
What I mean is that people choose their role models. Your person comes to you and say, or your teacher, you see that man go over there? That's your role model. No, people will gravitate toward, I would say, Bolt, a Shelley and Fraser Price, any particular artist or academician or whoever, because they see that person, things and values and behavior that attract them. So you're not told that this is your role model. You subjectively get attracted and follow these people. And by the way, we're all role models and don't even know, because once you're around children consistently, they are modeling some things in their life based on how you behave.
Hold thought for a second, Baron Buckley, because we are already upon a break. Very interesting point. Hold the thought, because there's something I want to drill down with you a little bit further after the break. And of course, some more comments from Angela Slack. Listeners, please stay with us. We'll be right back on the Morning Watch.
Learn more on the board. Discover a new and convenient way to send money abroad with the GK1 app. Download GK1 from the Google Play Store or Apple App Store to send with Western Union today. The time by Grace Kennedy Remittance is
7:15.
Will that be cash or card?
Card.
You have a supermarket card from Flow too?
Yes.
It's just like Flo paying for my groceries.
Sign up for Yard and Road for only $6,300 plus VCT, and you too can get a $10,000 supermarket card. Get Yard and Road, the plan that pays you back. Conditions apply.
Jamaica and its workforce are advancing quickly. Life-changing opportunities are arising. You need training and support. We are the Renewed Heart NSTA Trust, committed to providing new and emerging skills training and opportunities. Come to Heart. We'll help you claim your place in the workforce of the future.
The report is out.
What report?
The Constitutional Reform Committee's report of recommendations.
Recommendations on what?
On how we move from a monarchy to a republic, of course.
So what's in it?
The creation of the office of president and changes to our parliament. Yes, man. It also includes a new qualification for membership in parliament. I know you want to see that one.
Read the full report at roadtorepublic.mlca.gov.jn.
We are on the road to republic.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. We are in the first watch, and the topic is: should popular artists be role models for our children? Our guests are Angela Slack and Byron Buckley. Mr. Buckley, just before the break, sir, you're making a couple of points, and you even went as far as say that all of us are role models, especially if you're around children long enough. Would you like to continue that thought? And when you're responding, sir, I want to ask you to include a response to this. So if a particular popular artist goes on stage, especially if they do so under their stage name or their name as an artist, or it could be an actor, whoever it is, you know, and they act in roles or they perform songs or they do other things that society generally would regard as immoral or not in keeping with the correct social norms or not in keeping with the correct values and attitudes, and that child is looking up to this person to be a role model for him or her, what guidance, if any, do you give to these children? I mean, we're talking about, for example, in one particular case, a series of school tours, albeit that perhaps the artist might not have been using her stage name for some or all of these tours, as the case may be, because I'm not going to say that we are fully au fait with all of the facts relevant to that discussion, and we're not focusing on her in particular. But if someone, for instance, goes and says, well, you know, I'm appearing as in my birth name on my birth certificate, that's how I'm going to be speaking to you here. I'm going to try to motivate you. I'm going to try to encourage you. I can encourage you. I can help you. I've lived my life and I've seen many things. How do you unpack all of that?
Yeah, let me move the discussion into that, because I think the idea of all of us being role models around children is understood. That is self-explanatory. But I believe that the only thing we have to be realistic about is that, putting aside poor taste and vulgarity, there is something called adult entertainment and there is true entertainment, especially if you're coming across the airwaves, there are rules and so on. So we shouldn't have children watching and listening to certain kind of content. And if you properly train them, they will, and continue to do that, they will know that that's not something. I have some grandchildren who gravitate towards some particular cartoons. We just simply block them. We say, no, you're not going to watch that one because the message is on there is not for you. So there's some work at parents, and we can't do that work. Parents have to be vigilant and do the work. So, Andrea mentioned before.
Angela, yeah.
Sorry?
Angela.
I'm sorry, Angela, I'm renaming you. Mentioned before some of the gatekeepers. The gatekeepers are still traditional and they work to do the home and the school, and we can add the media. Now, the school, and I'm going to add the church too. the school in this particular instance about artists going in school and so on, the school has a role to play in determining who they think are appropriate artists or sports person or whoever businessman should come into the schools to pass on any information. We depend on the school system to make a determination. Person is the proper run school, a strong PTA, all of that will perhaps be discussed before, and so they agree on who can come into a school to share information. I'm not going to pick on popular artists now. I'm saying the school has a responsibility to determine who can come inside there and pass on. Because by the way, while our ears are all up about this particular one, it could be, and we have discussed sometimes, that there are other unhealthy persons who are getting their message in the school perhaps a different way. Of course, wife is probably just bad luck because she has a name. So I'm just saying, generally, the school needs to be careful about who come into the school and pass on what the message. So that's a real picture. I want to say in this case that the church, insofar as a reverend made a comment in a church magazine, is also playing a role. Maybe at least one of the role of the church is to ball out. So that's a legitimate role that the church played there to say, hey, let's question this. So those are the comments I make at this point in time.
You mentioned something while you were speaking, and I've always had an issue with it, but I'm not going to belabor the point. The whole matter of adult entertainment versus entertainment appropriate for children, it always comes across as being a little bit hypocritical to me personally, because it's almost like you could be telling a child, do what I say, but not do what I do. Any comments on that, Mr. Buckley, before we return to Angela?
No, I don't believe I'm being a realist. If I'm an idealist, I take the policy you took, but I'm being a realist. There are some stuff. I mean, even in news nowadays, by the way, television station has a warning, that is PG-13. I'm just saying that some content, whether it's for education or entertainment, it's not okay, certainly for kids to consume it without adult advice and explanation. That's just a reality.
I won't belabor the point, but I thought I'd raise it. Angela Slack, where should the church be on this issue of artists performing or rather being role models? Let me change the question about artists being role models for children. And I'm not saying that the focus should only be on what we call secular artists. There was a recent furor about Kirk Franklin, and when he came to Jamaica and performed at one of a major gospel, and he did certain moves on the stage that some persons in church found objectionable. So where is the church on issues like this? Is it that the church has become somewhat a little bit watered down in the standards it used to uphold? Is it that we have become a little bit lukewarm as to why we may not be as hard and fast with certain things anymore? You say you'll have some Christians saying nothing is wrong with the artists or role models, and some will say there's a problem with it. And, are we all coming from the same place then when it comes to this issue? Angela Slack.
Thanks for that question. Now, there's a scripture that says if you remove the old landmarks, or you ought not to remove the old landmarks, and for good reason. If you remove the landmarks, then people lose the guideposts and they can't orient themselves in society. And that metaphor, we could spread it. We could look at it on a macro, and we can also go down at the micro level with that metaphor. It simply means that we have to maintain values and standards in society. And the point of the gatekeepers keeps coming back, and the church, as I would say, the vanguard of gatekeeping. Because let's face it, Western society is built upon Judeo-Christian principles. All that we enjoy today came from the law that God gave to Moses. And so we have the moral law, and we have our ethics and our code for behavior coming from that. Our entire judicial system is based on that. So we have to reinstate those values and we have to hold to them dearly. And why? The reason we're having discussion this morning is because when we deviate from those standards, when we water them down, to borrow your phrase, we end up in a soup of confusion, and especially for the children. Because as was said earlier, I mean, I spent 25 years in the classroom, and one of the main things we were taught as educators is for behavior management, first you must model the behavior that you want from the children. And I never had problems. I never believed that there was any such thing as a naughty child. What I saw was a child who needed a roadmap, a child who needed correction, a child who needed modeling for them. So I never screamed and shouted at children in managing them. I simply modeled the behavior I wanted from them. And in due course, it became very clear what I approved of and what I didn't. And so there's so much studies around teacher expectation and how children respond to the expectation placed on them by the teacher or the educator or the leader in the community. So children have a natural propensity to look up to adults. That's the way of life. That's the natural order. And so we have to be clear about what our values are. You know, is truth still important? Is honesty and integrity still important to us? I dare say, just moving around in everyday society, you find where these cornerstone values are compromised. You know, what about personal integrity, accountability, basic cleanliness? What about those values? Decency in our grooming, over sexualization of our children. What about the value of purity and innocence? So if we're going to have an honest discussion, as you hinted at, the double standard, do as I say, but not as I do, the gatekeepers have to do their job, because not even God in his jurisprudence forces himself on anyone. He gives us free moral will, and we have the choice to choose. And this is why you will always have the dichotomy of evil over here and good over here, and the two should not meet. Yes. Because people have the right to choose what they want. And so God says, choose life, choose death, choose good, choose evil. But you know, you have the consequences of each. A large proportion of our society are choosing values that are not productive. They're not conducive to law, order, decency, and the propagation of what we call civilized society. And they choose it to their, I don't know, we see the consequences. And so when they are reeling and screaming, I don't listen, because I'm saying, man, you've made your bed, just sleep in it. If you're not comfortable in that bed, then leave it. So we have to be very clear about what do we want. You know, when we think of Jamaica, what do we want Jamaica to look like to the world? I'm a Jamaican living abroad for most of the time. And as I travel around the world, I'm very proud of my country. But I have to say, honestly, there are points at which I cringe and I'm completely embarrassed to be associated with the brand of Jamaica that's on display at that particular time, because there is always this duplicity, and we have to be very clear. What do we want Jamaica to look like to the world? How do we want people to see us? And even more importantly, how do we see ourselves? You know, just recently a neighbor across the road where I live, they're playing music at decibels that is disturbing the whole community, and yes, this is a residential area. Yeah. And if you go and say, could you turn it down? They're offended and they say, what up, you don't like the culture? And my speech bubble is, but when did it become culture to be inconsiderate, to impose your brand on me? You know, the old people can't sleep, babies being put to bed are being disturbed. We have to decide what is really the culture we want.
Angela Slack and Byron Buckley, only because of time, there's just so much more that could be said, but I think we have heard you loud and clear. I wondered whether we could have a moment to have a final word, but I think we're completely and totally out of time. One thing, however, is that this issue needs to be further ventilated, I believe, because when I took a look at the video in relation to the popular artist, and the title is Hell No, I just wondered how much can a child separate seeing that video from the human being whose name is on her birth certificate, or would be on his birth certificate if it was a man. It's going to be difficult, I think, for a child to make that distinction. So I totally understand the concerns, and my concern is what next. That is my concern. What next on issues like this? Because you will have other people who will want to go into these schools to do these tours, etc., or similar things. Let me not say tours, but similar things. And what is going to be the response of the school administration and the parents? But we're completely out of time. I want to thank Angela Slack and Byron Buckley for being guests this morning on the Morning Watch. And of course, we have to remember that we have to train up the children in the way they should go, so that when they become old, they will not depart. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Listeners, we'll be right back at the Morning Watch.
Time by John Bank is
7:32.
Home is closer than you think when you save towards your dream home with the Home Owner Savings Plan, or HOSP, from CIBC Caribbean. With HOSP, you unlock preferential interest rates to earn more interest on your savings and pay less with a discounted mortgage rate. You can even borrow up to an additional $5,000 or its equivalent to help you with your closing costs. Get home faster when you save the HOSP way with CIBC.
Smooth and premium tasting, rather than a bull on the great J. Yes, double seven wanna be getting. We touched on secured loans. Now let's take a look at unsecured. Unsecured loans do not require the borrower to provide any collateral to get the loan. In the unsecured loan, the lender assumes more risk. Due to the risk, an unsecured loan generally carries a higher interest rate.
This financial literacy tip was brought to you by Bank of Jamaica, building an inclusive economy.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. Let's take a look now at the newspapers to see what Jamaicans and others are saying and they're doing. And we have here in the Gleaner, USAID direct hires put on leave worldwide, except those deemed essential. And we have in the Observer, not approved. This story by Elisa Dunkley Willis. It goes on to read in the headline, Education Ministry says no request received for psychological testing of students. A little bit of the story here. The Ministry of Education has frowned on an initiative by local lobby group, Global Charity for All, and the St. Catherine Justices of the Peace Association to offer free psychological testing for primary and high school students in several parishes through an American psychologist and community psychotherapist. We have in Loop Jamaica News a headline here, fruit, vegetable prices see massive reductions. Those and many other stories in our various news sources. Coming up next, we will read for some of the feedback from our Facebook, YouTube, and WhatsApp question, which is, what are your thoughts on popular artists being role models for our children? If you haven't done so yet, leave your responses on our Facebook or YouTube, Love 101 FM Jamaica Live, and also WhatsApp your comments and voice notes to 876-9973-125 using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll be right back.
You can't afford to miss the next episode of the Mailbox as we focus on the topic musical mentors. The purpose of mentoring is to facilitate the personal and professional growth of individuals by providing guidance, support, and knowledge transfer from experienced mentors to mentees. You're invited to join the conversation with the biblical rhyme minister, Teacher Nicholas, on Wednesday, February 5 at 5:30 p.m. on the family station, Love 101. The Mailbox is brought to you by Solid PVC Pipes, manufactured in Jamaica by Fosrich Company Limited. That's Wednesday, February 5th at 5:30 p.m. only on the family station. Love 101, the Mailbox, Monday.
Hey, small people crew, it's me, Auntie Vashti, and I have some wisdom to share with you. Join me every discussion Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. on the Small People Show where little voices make big sounds. Inside Discussion Wednesdays, we have meaningful discussions about life skills, safety, self-awareness, and how to be the best version of you. Don't miss out. Tune in this and every Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. with me, Auntie Vashti, only on the family station, Love 101.
You gave the wind a mighty voice, spread your love throughout this land.
And February 14, Love 101 will be 32 years old. Oh, wow. And on Sunday, February 9, we'll be having our 32nd anniversary church service. And we want you to be there, if you can. The service will be held at 9 a.m. at the New Testament Church of God, 65 Waltham Park Road, with host Pastor Bishop Dr. Stevenson Samuels, who also serves as the chairman of the National Religious Media Commission. It's Love 101 FM 32nd anniversary. This year, we're sharing hope and touching hearts. 1 Corinthians 16:14. Let all you do be done in love. Love 101, 32 years, going strong.
Life can feel overwhelming at times, but you don't have to face it alone. The Ministry of Counseling and Prayer of the Edgewater Baptist Church is here to support you with our caring and confidential telephone counseling service. Whatever you're going through, grief, stress, family challenges, or just feeling stuck, our trained counselors are ready to listen, pray, and guide you toward hope and healing. Take the first step today. Call us at 876-220-6474 or 876-332-7956. Weekdays between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. Saturdays and Sundays between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Help is available through the Prayer and Counseling Ministry of the Edgewater Baptist Church. Remember, help is just a phone call away. That's 876-220-6474 or 876-332-7956. Weekdays between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. Saturdays and Sundays between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Call in now and let us walk this journey with you.
Happy cause you pop straight.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. Let's take a look now to see what our friends in social media have to say in relation to the feedback question. What are your thoughts on popular artists being role models for our children, Jakal?
All right, so we do have some responses. The first one comes to us from YouTube, and this person says their name is Carl Anderson TV. Says that is correct. Children are imitators of good behavior. Cherry in Spanish Town says with our artists as role models, there's a right way and a wrong way of doing things. The school has a responsibility to play, and whatever they do, it should reflect on good integrity and good values to the benefit of their school population.
Very interesting, Jacal. Thank you for reading those. And we move right into the second watch. Now, switching gears a little bit now. Globally, many countries face common and complex issues surrounding vulnerable children who are susceptible to neglect, abuse, and exploitation. Jamaica is not an exception. And according to available data, in Jamaica, the Child Protection Family Services Agency, CPFSA, reports a significant number of children in state care, with a portion of them residing in foster homes. Now, during one reported period, around 767 children were living in foster care, while the total number of children in residential child protection facilities reached 4,400. That was in 2023, including those in children's homes and places of safety. The CPFSA has overall responsibility for the fostering and adopting of children. But how important is the culture of adopting and fostering to a society like Jamaica's? Why isn't it a natural response for most to adopt or foster? We have a very important guest in studio this morning to talk to us about this. His name is Dr. Krish Kandia. He's the founding director of Sanctuary Foundation. He's a global expert on child welfare, education, innovation, civil society, and refugee resettlement. We have online Karen Fraser Williams, director for the foster, my humble apologies, for the child foster care, FLM. Good morning, Karen Williams, or Karen Fraser Williams. Good morning, Dr. Krish Kandia. Good morning to you both.
Good morning. Nice to be on the platform.
Good to have you in this hybrid fashion or hybrid format, one online and one in person. Now, would one of you like to explain the difference between fostering, adopting, and kinship care? I'll start with you, Madam Karen Fraser Williams. What's the difference?
Well, our focus definitely is on foster care, and foster care is a temporary arrangement, right? So what happens, I guess the children would have been in state care, and the parents and the state would have decided that they are not willing to give up the children for adoption. And so they would place them sometimes in families that are willing to care for the child as if it's their own. And whenever the parent is ready or in a better position, they could request that the child be restored to them. Of course, CPFSA or governing body would investigate the situation to ensure that what they say is, in keeping with what the expectations are, and would grant permission, if that is so, for the child to be restored to the biological parents. For adoption, of course.
I thought you were through. Continue.
Yeah. I mean, for adoption, that is a permanent legal arrangement where the biological parent says, okay, I am willing to give my child to a family who will be able to care for the child. And in that case, the adoptive family now becomes the parent, the adoptive parent, the legal guardian for that parent. So, and usually in that case, the biological parent has no say because they have relinquished their rights to that new adoptive family.
And any comments on kinship care?
Kinship care is a situation where the state tries to get the relatives, the grandmothers, the cousins, to
play a role.
Right, to play a role in taking care of of the
Stick it
child.
in for a moment there. Karen Fraser Williams, never enough time in the morning watch. We're upon a break already, and I do see our guest in studio, Dr. Candia, who is nodding in full agreement with everything you're saying, Karen Fraser Williams. But alas, after the break, we'll get his input as well. Listeners, please stay with us. We'll be right back on the Morning Watch.
Time on Love 101 is now 7:45 a.m.
Love at first buy? This Valentine's get 20% off at Bashco with a Valentine's BOGO deals. For him, bundle a TV and soundbar from Bashco. For her, keep that hair flawless with a hair dryer and flat iron set plus a gift me gift certificate, all available at Bashco. Shop between February 1st and 14th, and don't forget to top it off with a beautiful pre-made gift basket from Bashco. Treat your sweetheart to something sweet from Bashco. Follow Bashco on all socials at Bashco Jamaica for more information.
You're invited to listen to Dollars and Cents every Thursday at 8:16 a.m. We give you tips on how to make your money count, how to save, and how to grow your wealth. It's all inside Dollars and Cents, brought to you by BPM Financial Limited, taking you higher. That's Dollars and Cents every Thursday at 8:16 a.m. on the family station, Love 101.
Mama work hard, for real. He be the most to send me and my brother go school. So, the dream was always to go to university. Well, I fulfilled 2 dreams with 1 Jane Bank savings plan, you know. Further my education, and I make mama proud.
Stop wishing you could. With your Jane Bank savings, you absolutely can. Jane Bank will help you find a way.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. We are in the second watch, and the topic is 4,400 children waiting to be adopted or fostered. Our guests are Dr. Krish Kandaya in studio, founding director of Sanctuary Foundation, global expert on child welfare, education, innovation, civil society, and refugee resettlement, as well as Karen Fraser Williams, director for the Child Foster Care FLM. Just before the break, Karen Fraser Williams, you were outlining to us what, for example, what the distinctions were between, for example, fostering, adopting, and kinship care. And what I'd like for you to do for us now, if you can, if you would, is just comment generally on how our system is working here in Jamaica in terms of those 3 areas, fostering, adopting, and kinship care, and what might be working and what doesn't work before we bring in Dr. Kandaya. Karen Fraser Williams.
Hi, morning again.
Yes.
I can speak definitively about foster care, which is what Family Life Ministry is focused on. We are actually in partnership with Child Protection and Family Services Agency.
Yes.
And for us, we started a private foster care program since 2019. And we have so far placed 34 children in foster care. And
how's that been going?
It's going very well. The families really pour out their love. These are people who are really interested in children and want to provide a better life and give them a lot of love. And some of these parents do not have any children of their own. So what they have done, they have taken these children, some parents more than one of them, and they have chosen to love them as if they are their own. And it really has been going well so far. Parents are speaking about how they are being impacted and how they are assisting the children to develop. They place them in schools and they care for them. They go to parent-teachers meetings, and we offer training to these parents to help them to navigate this process, because as you know, a child who has been taken away from the original parents suffer from trust issues, abandonment, and so on. And so we have to really work with these to ensure that they feel comfortable and the trust is restored. And that's what we do.
Thank you, Karen Fraser Williams. Dr. Kandaya, help us, because you're coming from an entity where you have quite a lot of expertise in this area. What are your thoughts generally? You want to tell us a little bit, if you can, about the Sanctuary Foundation and your work with child welfare, etc. But more so, why have you chosen this area? I mean, why would you find it so interesting and so important to be involved in not just fostering but adoption? Even in, well, you live in the West here. You live in, you live in England, and I think Western culture generally, and maybe all cultures across the world, but there is a tendency to feel that your children should be from your own loins as a man, or from your own womb as a woman. And some people, it might take a little bit for them to cross that hurdle to say, well, why should I adopt? These are not my blood children.
Good question, Stokeley. And it's a pleasure to be with you. I'm enjoying my first trip to Jamaica. I've been eating very well, actually, eating a lot of jerk pork, and it was almost a spiritual experience. So I'm very excited to be here, and wonderful to hear from Karen and the fantastic work that her charity is doing. I think I'm a Christian, and Jesus is the person I'm most trying to honor in my life. And the Bible's so clear that God describes himself as a father to the fatherless and a protector of widows and orphans. And one of the callings on a Christian is to be godly, is to walk in the footsteps of Jesus, to emulate the character of God. And God loved the world so much that we believe Jesus was sent here to die for our sins. Why? So that we could be adopted into God's family. That was an incredible gift. It's the highest privilege that we could possibly know. And we confirm that adoption every time we say the Lord's Prayer. Our Father. Jesus is the only eternal Son of God. We are welcomed into the family of God only by adoption. So there are good biblical, spiritual reasons to adopt. I'd say that's the first.
But Dr. Kanda, we understand what you mean from a spiritual context. Well, certainly I do. And I'm sure many listeners do. But culture.
Sure.
A lot of persons in the church, for whatever reason, it doesn't appear as if they would even consider adoption.
Sure.
They'd rather keep praying for that child to come forth,
right,
instead of going the route of adoption.
Yes.
So why have you chosen an area like this in this cultural context?
Okay, that's fair enough. And it's just very similar in the UK, and in fact in most countries in the world. So I'd say a couple of things. The first is the Bible calls all of us to obey God above culture. So it always has a transforming element in any culture. It calls all of us, wherever we're from, to live Jesus's way. The Jesus way was countercultural in Jewish culture, in Roman culture, so it always calls all of us to transcend the culture. Second, there are some practical things. So I became a foster parent when I already had 3 children. So my wife and I, we were blessed by God. We had 3 children in 3 years, right? So I thought I'd contributed to kind of population growth. That was it. And I had this amazing idea that if these 3 beautiful children had come into my life all together, there may be a day in the future when they might leave our home to go to work or university, and then it would just be my wife and I again. And we would have the kind of good old days. We would go on long walks along the beach, holding hands, staring at the sunset. And then my wife says, you know what, maybe we should consider fostering an adoption. And I'm like, what? That's going to spoil all of my dreams. Like, walking along the beach is great, but not with a pushchair or nappies and a baby. This is terrible. And then, as I was thinking these thoughts, over a few months, every time I opened the Bible, there it was. God is calling us to care for the widow, the orphan, and the stranger. And I thought, I'm just being selfish here. That's ridiculous.
Lord spoke to you.
He did. It's an occupational hazard if you're a Christian that God speaks when we read the Bible.
So, Dr. Kanda, why Jamaica and why are you here now at this time?
Well, there's two reasons. The first reason, and it's such a delight to be here, I am working with Scripture Union, and they are a fantastic Christian mission that have been working for so many years here to help children and young people encounter Jesus at school. And so I'm here to speak at their fellowship breakfast on Saturday morning, and we're really excited to invite anyone that is listening to come and join us. I'm going to be the main speaker. It's taking place at Swallowfield Chapel, but you need to book if you want to come, and so get a pen ready. Here's the number you need to phone if you'd like to come along. It's 876-977-5886. That's 876-977-5886. And please phone, because we would love to see you. There's a modest fee, and the money for that is going to cover the breakfast, good breakfast, but also help raise funds for children to receive more about Jesus while they're at school. That's the first reason. But the second reason is related to the number that you mentioned. The number of children growing up in orphanages. 4,400 children in Jamaica. Jamaica is a wonderful country, but this is an outrage. You know, when you think about it, let's say I'm talking to a mother or a father listening today. We make plans, backup plans. If something were to happen to us and we couldn't raise our children, let's say we got, God forbid, some terrible disease and we knew we were going to die, what are our plans for our children? Where on the list of your plans for your children does an orphanage fit? Most of us, we would never dream of letting our children grow up in an orphanage. We would ask our sisters or brother or maybe our parents to care for our children. We would do everything we could to make sure that our children grew up in a family. So these children in our country of Jamaica, growing up in an orphanage, why is it acceptable for them to grow up without the love and tender care of a family? If it's not good enough for our children, it shouldn't be good enough for any children. And so I'm here because around the world, there's about 5.4 million children living in orphanages. Most of those children are not orphans. They have living parents. Many of them could be, under the right circumstances, reunited with mum and dad and given support. Many, as we've been talking, could grow up with an auntie or an uncle with the right support. And if there's no one like that, then I believe fostering and adoption is a great way that we care for these children.
So whilst you're here, of course, never enough time on the morning watch. So quickly, sir, whilst you're here, are you partnering with, meeting with other persons, for example, such as your co-guest here, to sort of see how you can assist in it and in what ways?
Yes, I'd love to meet Karen. We have a meeting on Friday that it'd be fantastic if she could join. I'm meeting with government officials. Our next meeting is at the Ministry of Education, and then we're going to meet the Children's Advocate, because David Alami, who's our new Foreign Secretary in the United Kingdom, he has 2 birth children and an adopted child, and he's just launched a global charter on child welfare reform. He would like to see no child needing to grow up in an orphanage.
Okay.
And so I'm asking Jamaica if they might be one of the countries that would sign up to this charter.
And I assume you'll be interacting, well, I don't know if you will be, but would there be any intervention as well through the British High Commission?
Yes, we were there yesterday, meeting with the FCDO representatives. So this is a global movement. The UK government is playing its part. We know in Britain we have not sorted everything.
So we will be hearing more anon then.
I hope so.
There's more to be heard. We'll be hearing more. And just in terms of the name of the entity or institution that you'll be speaking at on Saturday, you said?
Scripture Union.
Is it the Students Christian Fellowship and Scripture Union?
It is.
The Students Christian Fellowship and Scripture Union, their breakfast will be this Saturday?
This Saturday morning, 8 o'clock. And if you want to
come... the 8th of February.
It'll be the 8th of February.
And time?
8 o'clock in the morning.
8 o'clock in the morning.
And you can join by phoning the number that we gave you.
876-92, my humble apologies, I'll locate it here. It is 876-977-5886 to book an appointment to attend the breakfast for a small fee.
That's right.
Well, we're completely and totally out of time. Never enough time on the morning watch. Dr. Kandaya and Mrs. Fraser Williams, thank you so much for your time and for your thoughts, and all the best with this initiative.
Thank you, Stokeley.
Great.
Thank you so much.
And
Thanks
thank
for
you,
having me.
listeners, for being with us. Join us again tomorrow as we look at other topical and controversial issues. And of course, visit our Love 101 FM YouTube channel and Facebook page, and now TikTok at Love 101 FM Jamaica for this and all other Love 101 FM programs. And of course, download our app. The Love 101 app is stay connected to us at Love 101 FM, the number one gospel station in Jamaica. Thanks to our producer Kathy Gale and to our guests. Join me tomorrow as we look at other topical and controversial issues. I am Stokeley Marshall, handing you back to Love in the Morning with Jakal.
As the Ministry of Health and Wellness, we are committed to the values of care, compassion, excellence in service, integrity, teamwork, and innovation as we work to safeguard the health of our nation. The time by the Ministry of Health and Wellness is... Time is now 8 a.m. and you're now invited to listen to